Some eminent Nigerians, elder statesmen, called the Patriots, are coming together to review the state of our union and put forward proposals that should be considered, in their view, for national advancement. As a matter of fact, I read a document that was released by SAN Zakka Bala, I think on the 5th of June, ahead of June 12, where, if I want to paraphrase what he said, believing that without governance reform, the economic reforms that has been put in place by any administration may not be able, in fact, will not succeed, emphatically, because of structural issues, and all of that is captured in the Constitution that needs to change. That's what the Patriot, perhaps, really all about. But the person who is going to expound this conversation is Zakka Bala, is a member of the Patriot and an economic expert, joins us from Abuja studio. Mr. Bala, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you, and I greet our viewers across the globe.
Mr. Bala, I think the fair place to start before we deep dive into what the Patriots are doing in the meeting or summit, as it is called, which was shifted from today to tomorrow, I understand, in honor of the late President Muhammadu Buhari, is maybe your reflection on Muhammadu Buhari. Have you ever met him, or you just know him by reputation? What do you have to say about Buhari, the former president?
Well, thank you very much, and that's really what I even want to talk, because on the Patriots, like you rightly said, we have our leaders, and the chairman is Chief Emeka Anyaoku. He has been speaking, and I think I will even leave that to my leaders. As far as I'm concerned, former President Muhammadu Buhari has graduated into immortality today. My condolences to his immediate family, the people of Katsina State, Nigerians, ECOWAS, and the continent of Africa. So if anybody wants to x-ray Buhari, to me, Buhari had interesting chapters, he had interesting faces, and he even had interesting chronologies. That's the way I will put it. And I have my own chapters, faces, and chronologies. First of all, I grew up in Maiduguri. I had my primary school and secondary school education in Borno State. In my days in primary school, I remember what happened during the Katsina, Maitatsine riot, and the role that then young officer Muhammadu Buhari did. Then I was also in secondary school in Borno State, and I went to a secondary school in Borno State where Muhammadu Buhari was a military administrator. I think he visited my secondary school before I went in there, but his successor, Idi Agbon, also visited my secondary school, government secondary school, as Uba Borno State then. And what he did to students who were not ready to learn, including cripples. Because then our principal just said some students, the final year, then we had class 5, were not willing to learn. And I remember what late Idi Agbon did. They were seriously punished. Then when you fast forward that, to my undergraduate days, I entered University of Port Harcourt in 1983. And in December, when he became a head of state, I don't want to call it subsidy, but they stopped feeding of undergraduates. So I was there. We rioted, and I participated. In fact, I have the sky here. I still remember it. They stopped our feeding, and we remember how principled he was. I remember very, very well how principled they were in terms of instilling discipline and the rest. Then when you fast forward and get into politics, I think as far as I'm concerned, personally, I may be wrong. That was why I said it depends on who you're talking to and the perspectives. As far as I'm concerned, former President Muhammadu Buhari actually had his principles, tainted when he probably got into politics. But from the background as a military man, I think he was straight-jacketed. But something tells me something told me that probably when he, during his foray into politics, he probably came across zigzag characters. He probably came across people I can best describe as economic vampires, economic betrayers, and people who are not straightforward. And when you move further and graduate again, I can tell you about some of the policies and fiscal policies. I'm a practicing petroleum engineer, so I knew what happened in the days of subsidy removal. I felt very, very bad because a lot of people, it was during his time, but I noticed it happens with all presidents. Somehow it's strange, you know. Before they become presidents, I don't know how they get it in Nigeria, they get propagandists, you know, very good propagandists who can convolute anything.
All right, Mr. Bala, if I come
in, the concept of subsidy, which is supposed to be a global concept, was adulterated. You know, it was given a different coloration.
All right, Mr. Bala, if I come in,
but I was also happy that just before he left office, certain things happened that gave a hint to the succeeding government. And to me, like I said, it depends. And in each of these sectors...
All right, Mr. Bala, let me come in. Let me just come in and throw in a question or two. From your understanding of the economy and all of that, which is where some persons scored him quite low, given the fact that, especially the fiscal management of the economy, given where this government picked up from the numbers that were presented to all of us. We had a conversation with the top economists in the country who had worked with him as somebody in a committee that were making a recommendation in terms of advisory, and perhaps one of the remarks he made is the fact that he had a bit of phobia for reform, so he ended up kicking the can down the road in that sense because he was a bit more welfarist in the outlook. He didn't want to hurt the people. Do you think that was also part of the problem of his ability to revamp the economy that he had promised to revamp? Because in just the general assessment, if I ask you about the Patriots that we talked about.
No. As far as I'm concerned, he was misled. If you look at his background, he was a principled person. And that was why I said everything about his principle got adulterated. And to be honest, in politics, you have characters that are zigzagged. You have propagandists. In the military, you don't have propagandists. But in politics, you have propagandists. They just tell you how they want it done. They will even guide you, but at the end, they are going to mislead you. I'm saying this because I'm also a chartered accountant. I know what it means. I know what subsidy is. But in Nigeria, the concept of subsidy was abused because it's a global concept. Subsidy is a globally accepted, a globally tested, and a universally accepted concept. It is an economic pain cushioning concept. So if subsidy is not working in your country, that will not invalidate or vitiate its global universality. You have to look at how it was practiced in your own country. But in the concept of Nigeria, it was abused. Because what we had during his time, and I will explain it, was you had subsidy here, you have Nigeria here. But you have government here and you have Nigerians here. But between Nigerians and between our government and the citizens, you have what I can best describe as the subsidy that should get to Nigerians and the saboteurs. But what happened was, instead of removing the subsidy, the saboteurs, the economic vampires, the economic betrayers, and those economic, satanic guys, it was the subsidy that was removed, and we saw it. But I said I was very happy because a chronology was set for the succeeding government, and it was very clear. We noticed that when subsidy was first removed on kerosene, we didn't see the positive effect. Then the next thing was, and I love it because it was done in stages, and that is how you learn. If something has been done in stages by your predecessor, it should give you a hint. Subsidy was removed first on kerosene. We didn't see the effect. So it was clear that it was the mismanagement of the concept that was the issue. It was later removed on diesel. We didn't see the effect. It was removed on aviation fuel. So the only thing that was remaining was on PMS. For people like me, as a practicing petroleum engineer and a chartered accountant, it was clear that we had economic betrayers. We had saboteurs. It wasn't the concept, but it was the management of the concept that was the issue. But unfortunately, when the final one was removed and we saw it, it was very clear that the economy was going to reach the cliff edge and possibly collapse into the valley. And we have not recovered till now.
All right, Mr. Zakka, almost totally out of time, but in our landing thought, I know you're not like a spokesperson of the Patriots, but the conversation the Patriots will be having is of national importance, and they've been having this conversation.
Correct.
They even had to meet with the president at some point last year or so. The president has said, it's a great idea you're coming up with, but right now my priority, I just came into government, I want to get this economy on the road. I'm sure after the summit, the Patriots will be meeting him again. Now that we are talking about a new constitution in that sense, Zakka Bala, the SAN said, our constitution is not an act, it's a schedule attached to an act, that the National Assembly should pass through Section 4, subsection 2 and 4, and detach it and attach a new law. That's his own escape routine to all of that. But besides all of that, Section 16 of our constitution tilts towards welfareism in that sense, when in terms of state economic policy. So is the Patriot one of the things they will be considering as a new economy, a new constitution rather? Would they be factoring in a two-pronged approach to managing the economy, capitalist or neoliberal and welfarist, or just stay with the nuances of the Section 16 of the Constitution? That's just a technical question for us to wrap up.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the Patriots are meeting to make sure the constitution we are going to have or clean up and come up with is a constitution that will encourage inclusivity. We want an integrated government. We don't want a government that will be springing up monsters. We don't want a government that will be springing up leaders or throwing up leaders that will be egocentric. We want a situation where if for any reason you are a politician, I'm a politician, and we are supposed to be councillors, and you defeat me, if you feel I have something to contribute, bring me in, regardless of whether I was an opposition guy or not. So for the Patriots, what they want, we want to see a Nigeria that is working. Remember, Nigeria used to be the continental hub for the continent of Africa. People were learning democracy from us, education from us, till today. Look at what is happening about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Are you hearing anything about Nigeria again? Nigeria used to lead when you talk about diplomacy, even when you talk about helping other countries, you know, to quell things like insurgencies and the rest. So everything about the Patriots is to just make sure we have an inclusive government.
Okay.
We want a government that will make sure it brings leaders, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of regardless of even tribal or sectarian affiliation.
All right,
we
Mr.
want
Bala.
Nigeria to come back to her position and be well reckoned with within the continent of Africa and within the global community.
Zakka Bala, we must thank you so much, and we're looking out for the recommendation or the report of the Patriots this time and see how it goes from there. Zakka Bala is a chartered accountant, also a petroleum engineer and economist. Thank you so much for your perspective. We wish you and the Patriots the very best.
Thank you, and condolences to Nigeria again.